I was in secondary school, high school for you guys, or whoever you're American, we call it secondary school. I was in my final year, we call it sixth year. I had this one teacher, his name was Mr. Kavanagh. Mr. Kavanagh, one of my favorite teachers I've ever actually had. Tough as nails, funny guy. But when it came, he taught chemistry and maths. And he was telling us something about the bell curve, right? And what the bell curve in a sense is, it's just a line like this, like it's a line. In the bell curve, you have A's, B's, C's, D's, and E's, and F's. E's, A, B, C's, D, A, B, C, D, E, F, and F, yeah. I had to make sure I'm saying it right. With the bell curve, what it was is to make sure that not too many people passed, not many people failed, not many two people were in the middle. So, not many two people got A's, not many people got B's, and so on and so forth, if what I'm saying makes sense, right? In that sense, it was to make sure that everybody, the right amount of people stayed in the right amount of categories they're in. So let's say, for example, only 2% of people could get A's, or 3% of people could get B's, or 50% of people could get C's. It was to make sure how are these exams graded, to make sure that people will stay in their certain sectors. You're probably asking me, where am I going with this, and why is this so long with it? But I'm gonna get there. He said something to us where he said, guys, with the bell curve, some people have to fail. I remember he said this, and we were like, what are you talking, like what? He goes, people have to fail. People have to get A's, people have to get B's, people have to fail in order to keep the bell curve in check. And I remember hearing this and I was like, what is this guy saying? And he said, just make sure you do enough that you don't fail. That's how life is. In life, we have a bell curve where a certain amount of people have to succeed and a certain amount of people have to fail. Some people have to fail. Some people will fail because they have to fail the bell curve of life. Life is an ultimate balance, always. There's always a certain amount of good, a certain amount of evil. Has to be a balance in this life. Good will always be evil, hallelujah. But there has to be a balance in life. The bell curve is life. Some people will fail. Some people have to fail. Some people have to get F's in life. And some people have to get A's in life. But people have to fail. And Mr. Kavanagh said something to us. He looked at us dead in the eyes when he said this. He goes, make sure you do enough that you pass these exams. Make sure that when they look at your grades, they can't fail you. Because it was by average. So if you got, let's say 34.4%, they have to grade you down. If you got 34.5%, they have to grade you up. Which means you have to do enough to pass. He goes, when they look at your exam paper, he said they must have every obligation to look at your exam paper and say, I have to push him up, not down. The same goes for life. You have to make sure that when God looks at your resume, when God looks at your exam, he has to push you up. He cannot push you down because people have to fail. Because there's a bell curve in life. Unfortunately, some people have to fail. And when he said this to me, I didn't even I deeped obviously in maths. And I met my friend, Thomas, and he said it to me again. He goes, that's life, bro. And I actually just said, wow. People have to fail. You are not going to be the exception to every rule. Because there has to be a balance. But make sure when God looks at your resume, when God looks at your exam, he says, I have to pass him. I can't fail him because he's done enough. But God looks at some people's resumes and he says, yeah, he's getting an F in this life. Fail, stop. And he may not be able to resit. Some people have to fail. it really hit me because obviously I'm in the sales space. We do well. We thank God for what we're able to do. All glory to God. We're in the online space, and some people have been in the online space for 5 years and haven't seen success. Some people have been in the online space for a month and seen success. It took me 6 months to get my first ever paycheck. I always say it's basically 5 to 6 months for me to get my first ever paycheck in sales. It's about $600, $700. So, guys, I knew another friend of mine. It took him 9 months to get his first paycheck. Another brother I knew, it took him 2 weeks. For some people, it takes 5, 10 years. So when God looks at your exam, make sure he gives you an A plus, or even a C, or even a pass. Because some people have to fail, brother and sisters. And not only do some people have to pass or fail, the only way to not fail is to keep on going, is to be consistent, constantly consistent. I think it's Alex Hormozi that said a quote that I'm paraphrasing, but he said, be so irresistibly consistent that when life looks at you, what you're doing, that you can't fail because you're so consistent. That is the only way to beat the bell curve, by being consistent, because some people have to fail. But more often than not, the people that fail are the people that have given up. So I leave you with this. Don't give up. And you don't give up. Don't give up. Because when the bell curve is grading its exams, make sure you've done enough that you're in the pass section. Because people have